best businesses are the businesses that start small and grow big, that don't stay small. Because as they grow big, they employ more people, they create more job opportunities, and they can do more things more cost effectively.
The echo of support for small businesses is growing louder, the realization of their importance stronger, and their hopes are rising even higher. But also mounting are the challenges they face, the biggest being the access to finance. India's micro, small and medium enterprises are in need of a whopping 32.5 lakh crore rupees as funding.
I started this business 3 to 4 years back. I would like it to grow. I want more branches of this from my own, but I would need some good financial support from maybe banks or anything else.
जितना होता है इसका 4 पट ऊपर जाने का अभी जो है वो, तो वो करने के लिए अभी क्या है, पेमेंट है ये शॉर्टेज, लेकिन आजकल का गवर्नमेंट का ये जो सब देना लेना है ना, तो थोड़ा इजी हुआ है.
There is always support which is required from the government authorities and the banks as well to help us initiate what we are trying to grow into.
If I want to grow beyond a certain level, then I have to go for public limited and I have to accept the bank finance.
The changes definitely will be positive enough for us or SME segment to grow.
Most of these small businesses require finance at every stage. To start with, they need the initial capital to start their venture, and then they need the working capital to carry on with their day-to-day operations. Now, where exactly can they go to seek this finance? On one hand, we have the banking system, which is often perceived as being averse to lending to this particular sector. And on the other hand, we've got these government-funded credit guarantee schemes which are available, which are channelized through institutions like SIDBI. Let's now take you through both these options available for funding to the MSME sector.
One would believe that banks are the first stop when you need a loan, but that does not hold true when it comes to small businesses. In fact, traditional banks cater to only 10% of the total financing requirements of this sector. The biggest reason behind this dismal disbursement is the high-risk perception of these businesses. Banks fear the stability and sustainability of their operations and question their ability to repay the credit taken. Non-availability of a concrete business plan further fuels these concerns, while the limited ability of these entrepreneurs to offer collateral also acts as a deterrent to lending by banks. Lack of proper documentation for loan processing is another major concern.
Bankers claim that lending to the sector has been growing at 23% annually over the last 3 years, and that they are willing to push this lending even further, but only if some systemic issues are first addressed. I have with me Mr. Sushil Munot, CMD of Bank of Maharashtra, who's here with us to talk to us about the issues which banks actually face when it comes to lending to MSMEs. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us. I want to firstly ask you, what are the risks, according to a banker, which are there when it comes to lending to MSMEs? We know the access to finance has been one of the key issues for MSMEs, and only 10% of them are able to get finance from the banker's side.
Let me first put the record straight in terms of saying that the bankers are too much willing to finance the MSME sector. In fact, they have actually shown it by way of a 23% annual growth rate in the MSME financing in the last 3 years. It is there. However, there are some issues which remain, that when the bankers are willing to give and the SME who are the takers of the finance are willing to take the money, there are some issues in the ecosystem because of which the financing doesn't happen to that extent required. Now the issues here are, as per an IFC study, International Financial Corporation Washington study, survey-based study on the Indian SMEs, is that the problem is in terms of information and information gap, awareness gap, and the second problem is in terms of cumbersome processes, and the third issue is of collateral. These are the three major issues which come up in terms of this. So when we address this first issue of information gap and the information gap coming up from the entrepreneur side, basically because he is not aware of how to make a proper project report. either he is not able to make a project report, or either one level of entrepreneur don't even have the basic document available of setting up the plant. A basic authorized document itself is not available.
So documentation is one key
So
thing.
authorized piece of document is not available, number one, and number two, wherever he has an authorized one, he doesn't have the information to make a proper business plan to be submitted to the banker. So this absence of a business plan, because he never knows from where to get the information on doing all this kind of thing. It is not taught in colleges also and universities.
What's the solution?
The solution is that if we can have some trade facilitation agencies who can help in terms of bridging this gap of information and hand-holding the entrepreneur. These agencies could be like the bankers, the three stakeholders, no important, the bankers, the MSME ministry and the entrepreneurs. These three can get together to form such a thing, wherein the bankers can provide, say, it can be done as 1/3 of the cost can be borne by the bankers of this facilitation exercise, 1/3 can be borne by the MSME ministry and 1/3 can be borne by them. Otherwise, the problem is that this person has to either depend on chartered accountants and others, wherein he is not able to afford the fees, and there are problems associated with that.
But still, why? Because their requirement is much lesser than what the big corporates need. So still, why the percentage of lending is much lower?
See, the second issue which comes up after this is, suppose we go to a little larger one, is that the issue of non-availability of collaterals. Now this is an issue, very much important issue, because they are not able to bring in the requisite collateral. Here there is a wonderful scheme which has come up from the Ministry of SME, wherein they have given as a credit guarantee fund trust for micro and small enterprises. Now this trust stands as a guarantee for loans up to ₹1 crore from the banking system. So the entrepreneur does not have to give a collateral. So there is a good reasonable amount of financing. Only thing is this guarantee fund needs more money to be able to provide aggressively more number of guarantees to be able to cover large number of people into that.
The medium enterprises, what about those? Because their requirement is much higher.
Yeah. Now the medium enterprises, or the small and medium, the larger of the small and the medium enterprise, they also require more funding. One of the major gaps, see, they require both debt and equity. Because equity normally has been coming from friends and relatives, but for a medium to enterprise it will not be able to possible for them. So there need to be a formal sources of equity financing for the larger of the small and the medium enterprises. On this side, the government has done again a wonderful thing in terms of having a 10,000 crore rupee venture capital fund for the MSME sector. Now this fund needs to be operationalized faster, and it could be as a fund of funds, so that 50% of this money goes to a venture fund, and the venture fund also raises balance 50% from promoters and from other sources. So it will double the amount of equity available to the MSME sector.
Last question, Mr. Munhot. Bad loans has been another key issue. Tell us exactly, is the percentage of bad loans from this particular sector higher than the other sectors?
Yes, now it has become higher than the other sectors. Earlier it was very low, but last 2 years we have seen that the percentage of bad loans has increased significantly. It is today more than 5% for the entire banking sector, and for the public sector bankers it is almost 6.5%. Okay. So it is high, and it is mainly because of the delayed payments being made by the large corporates, and because of which they are not able to meet the 90-day norm of making payment to the bank.
The rising bad loans in the banking system is holding back many banks from lending. This despite RBI's mandatory 20% lending target to MSMEs, which fall under the priority sector lending, a target many banks are failing to achieve. In 2014, of the 27 PSU banks, 8 failed to meet their mandatory lending target to small businesses. One of the solutions from experts is to form a new financial architecture focused on niche lending to these MSMEs.
There is a new financial architecture for SMEs being spoken about. What do you expect to see there, or what do you think should be included in that?
No, as I told you, if we are envisaging a growth of 8% in GDP, SME have to be promoted. Then we are saying contribution of manufacturing sector should be 25% as per National Manufacturing Policy by 2022. So regarding SME, I think small and micro, MSE has to be performing, that is micro and small has to perform. And we should have a separate, you can say, target under micro. Like we have a target for priority sectors, and we should have a target under MSME for micro enterprises. So we have to see that they grow. This is one. Secondly, what I think is for micro enterprises, CGT-MSE should be made compulsory. It should not be optional that branch has taken or not. Below 25 lakhs, we can say that that is compulsory. So that should boost the sector. Then I think one national body is being proposed for this new architecture. So that is very important. And with these things happening, I think the sector should show a good growth in times to come.
So what is it that the companies from the SME segment can do in order to make it easier for banks to lend to them?
When a borrower comes to us, depending on what is the requirement, the bank requires certain, like he should be registered with as a SME unit, then his project report should be there. What is the viability of the project? What is the market assessment he has done before setting up a unit? What is the availability of raw material, backward and forward linkages? You may have backward linkage but no forward linkage, or vice versa. So once these things are in place, then we can support them in their financials and financing both. But these are the basic things which we look into, and secondly the background of the promoter, who is the promoter behind the project.
So what is Dena Bank doing to tap these kind of industries and to reach them and to increase the amount of lending that goes out to that sector?
No, we have shown a growth about 35% year on year to this sector, and as I told you, this is our thrust area for the last about 4 or 5 years. We have been giving a lot of thrust in this area, and as I told you, the process is that we celebrate SME Day, we celebrate SME Day. We are monitoring on daily basis, virtually at the zonal office level, how many applications have been mobilized, how many have been disbursed, what is the pendency. So this is the way how we are looking to support this industry.
On the other side of this break, we look at the various financing schemes and initiatives undertaken by the government to help these small businesses,
under which we have created a lenders forum.
Realizing the importance of MSMEs for the economy, the government has taken several measures over the years. At the state level, state financial corporations along with the state industrial development corporations are the main sources of long-term finance for the sector, while SIDBI at the national level is the principal financial institution responsible for promotion, financing and development of the MSME sector. Apart from extending financial assistance to the sector, it coordinates the functions of institutions engaged in similar activities. SIDBI's major operations are in the areas of refinance assistance, direct lending and development and support services. One of the biggest initiatives of SIDBI along with the Government of India is the Credit Guarantee Fund scheme, a scheme which makes available collateral-free credit to the MSME sector. Both existing and new enterprises are eligible to be covered under the scheme. The corpus of this trust is contributed by the government and SIDBI in the ratio of 4:1, giving entrepreneurs access to collateral-free credit facilities up to 1 crore rupees.
If you can talk about the financial system for this particular sector, what is it? How is it done at the moment, and what are the difficulties that MSME space actually faces right now when it comes to accessing finance from a formal system, which is like going to banks?
The sector faces a lot of challenges, and simultaneously there are a lot of opportunities also for the sector. In terms of challenges, right from the inception stage, raising growth capital, raising loans without collateral security, undergoing a rating through the rating agencies, etc., then marketing their products. All these are major challenges which the sector faces. Coming to SIDBI in particular, as far as SIDBI is concerned, we have tried to position ourselves as an apex organization which would try to fill in the gaps in the financing space as well as in the developmental space for the MSME sector. By that I mean that we are looking at certain niche products which the MSME sector particularly needs, and I'll elaborate by illustrating some of these products. For example, one of our major products is a receivable financing scheme which addresses the problem of delayed receivables of the MSMEs. And going forward, you may be aware that RBI had some time back announced the guidelines for setting up what is called the TREDS platform, that is the Trade Receivable E-Discounting System. The idea would be that all MSMEs who are registered on this platform would load their invoice or bill on the platform, and the financiers who are also registered on the platform would bid for discounting that bill. And the entire process would go through a price discovery mechanism, and the financer offering the lowest price or the lowest interest rate would eventually get to discount the bill. So in the process, MSMEs are going to get the finest interest rates, and it would mitigate the problems of delayed receivables to a very, very large extent. So this is one of the major areas in which SIDBI has taken the lead. In addition to this, we are a major player in the field of venture capital and growth equity basically. We have a subsidiary, a wholly owned subsidiary of SIDBI called SIDBI Venture Capital, which is currently managing 5 venture capital funds. In addition to that, SIDBI directly provides risk capital, which is in the nature of subordinated debt having a long-term tenure and a longer moratorium vis-a-vis normal loans, and is subordinated to all other debts or dues of the company, and is also without any security, lending to it the features of what is called quasi-equity. And this can be leveraged by MSME units to raise further loans from commercial banks. This kind of a product also helps them in basically financing intangibles like marketing, branding, R&D or advertising, which would normally not be eligible for financing without collateral security.
What is the role as far as the microfinance is concerned? What's the role played by SIDBI in that?
Well, over the years, SIDBI has been one of the institutions which has supported the microfinance institution movement in the country. In 1999-2000, based on a pilot project, we had set up the SIDBI Foundation for Microcredit with the specific objective of trying to set up 100 viable microfinance institutions across the country. And I'm very happy to say that we have partnered more than 150 MFIs over this period who have emerged as a very sustainable option for reaching out to the poor, particularly women, and giving them small loans up to 50,000 rupees. The microfinance sector has gone through various problems over this period, but has now stabilized considerably. And we have also introduced a responsible financing mechanism for the sector, under which we have created a lenders forum, which has prescribed certain common covenants which would address all the issues which were plaguing the sector in terms of transparency in interest rates, adherence to a code of conduct, client protection principles, etc., given the fact that this sector deals with the poorest of the poor basically.
While the banks and the government have a lot to fix in order to extend their support towards the growth of the micro, small and medium enterprises, there is much that is expected from the MSMEs themselves, who need to be educated and to be aware of the options available to them. In our next 2 episodes, we take you for a visit inside these MSME units, and we meet the entrepreneurs running these businesses as we look into the challenges they face and the aspirations that they have.